One, two, three.
Hello everyone, I am Be Better Gamer. Welcome to Be Better Gamer Wrestling. This channel is dedicated to wrestling video games, fueled by my love, passion, and obsession for them. I am bringing you a very special episode today. What you're looking at is the intro to Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, but you might notice already that something looks a bit different. Some of these people in this intro don't necessarily belong there, or if they do belong there, then something is different about them. And what I am showing you today is this is the start. This is the intro of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 indeed, but is the intro of a ROM hack that is currently being developed called Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 Freem Edition. That's F-R-E-E-M, Freem Edition. And it's called Freem Edition because that is the person who has made it. His name is Freem. Obviously that's not his real name, but that's the username he goes by, is Freem, and he's been working on it for quite a long time. I've been in contact with him over the past few months, just like as a fellow content creator for the Aki Games. And you know, he's been with the modding and hacking community for a while within the Aki scene, and he wanted to know if I wanted to test out a preview build of his ROM hack, and I said sure, why not? Would you mind if I create a video for it too? And he was like, go for it. So that's what this video is gonna be about. You know, normally I do let's plays, I do calls for Virtual Wrestling 2 and the other Aki games, but people have always been requesting for me to play mods or show off different mods for WWF No Mercy, Virtual Wrestling 2, WrestleMania 2000, and I know there's a lot of them out there. There is. The only issue is I'm on a Mac, and a lot of the Mac emulators don't run these mods. I know I could install Boot Camp and have Windows running on my Mac. I just never got around to that. But look, here we go. Here's the intro. Look at that. He even changed the intro scene, Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Edition. It's a blue logo, yellow colors. Here's the background. So yeah, the one cool thing about this ROM hack is that for me, I can run this on my N64 EverDrive, because we're going to go into some of the details of how this ROM works. But, you know, everything is done, Freem says, by editing the ROM. No Game Shark hacks, no emulator texture plugins are needed. So if you have an EverDrive, you can just run this with the ROM file. If you have any emulator you use on your PC, your Mac, and any, you know, Android maybe, possibly, I assume, even though I haven't tested it out yet on Android, but anything, you just use the ROM file and it works. And here we go, right off the bat, you can see he was able to put Stone Cold Steve Austin in the game, The Rock in the game, and all of these characters that you see in there, their faces, everything has been exported from WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, and a bunch of other video games. And that's how he makes this ROM hack work. And you can change this too. Like, you don't have to, we'll get into a little bit of how, behind the scenes, how he does it. But also, when you have this ROM, when he eventually releases it, and we'll get to that soon, you can go in and change it. You can treat it like a normal character edit mode. So here I am with Bret Hart, and if you've seen my WrestleMania 2000 calls, you know I did a WrestleMania 2000 Bret Hart, and I used these tights specifically. So if you wanted to go ahead and change how the wrestlers look, you can do that. And here we go. And I know his Bret Hart is not done. A lot of these characters are not done. Again, this is a preview build, so what you're seeing is a work in progress. This is not how his Bret Hart is going to look at the end of the day. His Stone Cold, all these wrestlers, most of them are, you know, about 85-90% done. Very few are 100% done. Obviously Taker is still being worked on, but you can go in and edit them too if you want to give them different outfits and costumes and things like that. And it's crazy. It's crazy to think about that he's able to do this without any texture plugins or hacks or anything like that. You know, I asked him, you know, how is he doing this? How is he creating this? And what he has done is that he's developed a software, a program, if you will, called Virtual Pro Wrestling Studio. And what he says is Virtual Pro Wrestling Studio is a a tool to ROM hack various games in the Aki series. You know, it's built specifically for the Aki series, for all the games part of it, going all the way back even to World Tour. And if you can see here, there we got D Malenko, but look, in the roster lineup you can also see Steven Regal, which he is pulling from WCW NW World Tour. And it's just focusing on all those 6 games: World Tour, Virtual Wrestling 64, Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, Virtual Wrestling 2. Down the line, you know, this is maybe a year or 2 from now, down the line, he's gonna want to do support for PS1 games and even the Def Jam games. And he says the program largely owes its existence to the GoldenEye setup editor, which, if you're familiar with sort of the ROM hacking and modding scene for other N64 games, it's a very popular tool for editing various games from Rare, like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Diddy Kong Racing, Jet Force Gemini. And again, he pulls all the textures from photos, or, you know, pixel bashing him. I don't really know what that means. If you could explain what pixel bashing is, but pixel bashing them until they look similar to the Aki textures. And that's his process. He also has another user who helps him, Ragdas, Ragdas. And Ragdas has helped him make a few of the other faces in the game, like Ric Flair and Karl Gotch, based off of Virtual Wrestling 64, but using a completely different process that involves working from in-game profile pictures. He's created the arena textures on his own that are in this game, which we'll see in a bit, and costume textures that he created on his own, you know, changing the Mike Awful trunks to Mike Awesome trunks and putting in the Scott Hall trunks so that we can have Scott Hall in this edition. And I asked him, I was like, are you able to swap anything else besides the textures? Like, can you do music swaps, move swaps, or anything like that? And he said, yeah, he could do them, but some things are a lot more easier to swap than others. And a lot of what's possible in Virtual Wrestling Studio is already available sort of to be done in GameShark form, like using GameShark codes to mod and hack the games. But this is all working primarily on the ROM level, so you don't have to use GameShark codes. He is planning on releasing Virtual Pro Wrestling Studio as well as his ROM hack Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Edition. So for everyone who might be watching this and thinking, man, it'd be really cool if I could do something like this. I know that's what I think when I see something like this. Freem's got you covered. He's gonna be releasing that, so everyone can probably go in and make their own custom ROM hacks for WCW NW Revenge, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, Virtual Wrestling 2. And I'm just super excited about that. Again, a lot of this is a work in progress. Obviously, Dynamite Kid does not wiggle his hips like that. He's got to edit the moves still for a lot of people. He's got to fix all that. You know, right now, the process for importing the moves is a very tedious process. And Freem is working as hard as he can to get it all done. You know, this was a project that he had started originally, you're not going to believe this, in 2000, in the year 2000 is when Freem originally started sort of the beginnings of this idea to mod Virtual Wrestling 2 from the ROM level. And it was called Virtual Wrestling 2000 at the time. And for various reasons, you know, with the level of difficulty of doing such a ROM hack back then, and also, you know, Freem having his own personal life and being busy with so many things, he wasn't able to get it done. So it wasn't until last year where he realized that maybe I should pick that project up again. And around sometime in the beginning of this year, like around February of 2018, when he realized he had way more experience with modding and hacking, he decided to pick it up again. And that's what sort of inspired him to create this ROM hack. And he also felt like, you know, the Aki hacking community, it's definitely been growing, and over the years, there's a lot of great projects in development right now for the rest of the Aki games. There's a really cool mod happening for WWF No Mercy called Aki Evolution, which is trying to change the entire gameplay of No Mercy's engine, and there's also another hack called Virtual Pro Wrestling 3, which is being made. But he felt, you know, the Aki Games hacking community has sort of been relying on GameShark codes and emulator plugins, and he wanted to move past that. So that's why he's making Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Edition. And right now you can see I'm going through the edit mode, sort of all the different costumes, because another cool thing about this hack is that everything is unlocked right away. You don't need to put in a GameShark code. You don't need to go through and unlock everyone on your own to do it. So right off the bat, all the moves, everything is unlocked, costumes, which is great, because if you follow me on Twitch right now, you can see I've been going through Virtual Wrestling 2 trying to unlock everything, and it can be a very long process. As I'm recording this, you know, just yesterday I was streaming Virtual Wrestling 2, and we finally got a Kiramita, which you have to go through all of Royal Road Succession with an MMA fighter from Rings, and then you got to use a Kiramita to unlock Alexander Carolyn going through Royal Road Succession. And those are just the last two people I need to unlock. There's so many people that you have to unlock, so many costumes, belts, and all of that is unlocked for you. The completionist in me is sort of like, I like to unlock stuff, but at the same time, I know a lot of people, they just want to get in there, they want to play the game, they want to have everyone at their disposal. So I think that is an awesome feature included in the game. I also wanted to see if this could work with my already saved calls that I have on my memory card. I know I can do this with my ROMs on the EverDrive, which is what I use primarily when I stream. I use my Virtual Wrestling 2 translation patch ROM to stream, and I can transfer the calls from my actual cartridge on the N64 to the ROM, but I can also do it here. So again, it's like you have the actual version of the game, because transferring over your calls, there's no issue. And there I am transferring over my Kazuchika Okada call that I made a while back that you can find in my Virtual Wrestling 2 call playlist. So I'm going to jump into a match. I'm going to jump into a match to show you again that this is all running in-game engine, and I figured let me take two people from Virtual Wrestling 2, two people from, you know, past Aki Games, and we're gonna go ahead and have a match. And again, keep in mind, a lot of these wrestlers I don't want to see in comments. All right, I'm gonna say it right now, I don't want to see in comments, oh, so and so doesn't look right, so and so doesn't look good. This is a preview build. This is not yet ready to be released to the public. He is planning on releasing sort of like a beta build as well, or at least I think he's planning to release a beta build. I'm not sure. Hold on, don't quote me on that. But I know he wants to try to get something out there for people either by the end of this year or sometime early next year. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but as you can see, it's up and running. It's working. I've had no issues playing this preview build yet. Nothing's crashed, nothing went wrong. I've probably played it for a couple of hours or so, changing various things to see if that messes it up. Here I am showing you right now, I'm going into the creative belt, where all the belts once again are unlocked, which is such a relief. If you've never seen all the belts unlocked, there they are, which I'm gonna do, you know, naturally in my Virtual Wrestling 2 streams and on my channel. I'm gonna show you how to get all those belts as well, but I'm gonna do a battle royal 4v4, and you're noticing a lot of things are translated too, and he's also doing his own sort of like translation. This is not using the SK Styles translation patch that I use, that I've done a video on before on my channel for the Virtual Wrestling 2 translation patch. He's actually using something different that's based off of it, but because how that translation patch is coded, it's a lot different from what he's doing in this version. So there are slight differences, and we're gonna play the intros. And you know, like I said before, I asked them, are you able to swap music and things like that, because it'd be really cool if we can also get the entrance themes from the other wrestlers in the game, like you're gonna see in a bit, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and other people, if you have their themes in No Mercy or WrestleMania 2000, to put them in here. But he's gonna try to work on that. So we're gonna see a match right now, and again, I'm gonna go over a few other finer points about this, because I had a lot of questions for Freem, and I'm sure everyone here watching this has a lot of questions for this hack, when they can get it, when they can get their hands on it, how they can use it. It's supposed to be very user friendly. Like I said in the beginning, you can just put it onto any emulator and it should work. I'm running this on the EverDrive, which I'm recording through my Elgato, which is how I record primarily all my Virtual Wrestling 2 content and No Mercy content lately. You know, originally I was using the cartridges. I was running it natively with my Virtual Wrestling 2 cartridge and my No Mercy cartridge. But when my No Mercy save data got erased at the beginning of the year, when I ran into the No Mercy save data glitch, that's when I decided to just completely stick with the EverDrive, which I bought for the sole purpose of running the Virtual Wrestling 2 translation patch. So this is just another great moment in my life of playing Virtual Wrestling 2, that there is now finally a ROM hack that I can play on my EverDrive. I think it's so awesome, and I think it's going to open the door for a lot of people once Freem is able to release Virtual Wrestling Studio, because I know I'm going to give it a shot. You know, he says it's going to be hopefully user friendly. You know, I asked him, like, you know, what's the easiest part of this project? What's the easiest part? And he said filling in the file table DB entries in Virtual Wrestling Studio with names, types, and, you know, a bunch of extra data. And I'm like, great. And I just nodded. I don't know what file table DB entries means. But he says it's the easiest part. So I'm like, all right, well, what's the hardest part? And, you know, he says coding things up in Virtual Wrestling 2 Studio so that he can write it back to the ROM. Anything involving 3D rendering, you know, wanting to put in other things, like he wants to put in the boxing style that was in Virtual Wrestling 64 that Joe Bruiser had. You know, Joe Bruiser, who was supposed to be Muhammad Ali in Virtual Wrestling 64 and WCW NW World Tour. Eric Bischoff had a similar style in WCW NW Revenge. Working with textures is another difficult thing with him because he doesn't consider himself an artist. And all those things he explained to me is just stuff that I've always felt like I could never wrap my own head around, which is why I kind of never really got into the whole modding and hacking scene. I would like to one day get into all that and do all that stuff, but someone like me, you know, I need something to be intuitive. I don't like to spend too much time learning something because I don't have the amount of time to learn something. You know, even when I'm making videos for YouTube, Photoshop, and using, you know, editors, it takes me such a long time to learn something because my time is very limited. I don't have 8 hours in a day where I can, you know, get really good at something. I need to learn something fast. It needs to be easy to learn so that I can start working on it right away. And I'm hoping that Virtual Wrestling 2, not Virtual Wrestling 2, Virtual Wrestling Studio is going to be something similar to that. So no pressure, Freem. No pressure, but I'm relying on you. Here we can see also he changed a few things. If you notice, the font's a little bit different in the timer. The font on the, you know, player 1 and the computer symbols are different. The menu bars are a little different. And I believe he got some of that stuff from other series. Don't quote me on this, but I think he might have said the Def Jam series. He got it. He was inspired by how it looked there. I have to double check. I have to ask him. Or maybe this is more similar to one of the earlier Aki games like Virtual Wrestling 64. I forget. I know he's pulling a lot, you know, again, a lot of the textures he's pulling from the Aki games, but he has been pulling stuff from the Def Jam series and a few other series of games that he can actually import into this edition, which I think is like so cool. And there you go, even the special flashing, there you go, it's no longer in Japanese. I do wonder, now that I'm thinking about this is not something I asked him before, but I do wonder if there's a way to maybe, if you want to keep it in Japanese, you know, if you want to keep the special flashing in Japanese font or lettering, like, do you have to change that? I don't know, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't changing it. You saw me earlier in the edit mode when I was going through the moves. I was checking to see if I can edit the moves of the characters already in the game, and he says you can't. He says you can't do that. It's sort of like, it's gonna be like a real version of Virtual Wrestling 2 and all the other Aki games where you couldn't edit the moves natively, but that's something you'd be able to do in Virtual Wrestling Studio. He says right now the move, you know, hacking process is a little tedious. He has to run it in-game and dump all the moves in-game and then bring it over to Virtual Wrestling, you know, Studio and just a whole bunch of steps. It's not something as easy as put this move here and then this person does it. He's trying to streamline that process so that it does make importing move sets a lot easier, because someone like Stone Cold and The Rock, who you see in the ring, who now they have the move sets of what they did in WrestleMania 2000. It wasn't as easy as copying and pasting the moves over. There was actually quite a few steps to get that working properly. And going to the roster, I showed the roster earlier, and I didn't go through the whole roster. But you saw that there was a nice blend of wrestlers from Virtual Wrestling 2, Virtual Wrestling 64, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, WCW NW Revenge. And I asked Freem, I was like, what went into creating the roster? Can we have more than what's available? And he says no, you can only have as many people in the roster as you can already in the game. So he had to sort of replace people. He had to take certain people out. I'm sure no one's gonna miss playing as maybe, Mike Barton or Jun Izumida. No offense to the Mike Barton and Jun Izumida fans, but no one's probably gonna miss them. They'd probably much rather have someone like Stone Cold, The Rock, Shawn Michaels in this game. And sort of his criteria for the people in the game was, he wanted to play as them, number one. They were in most of the other Aki games, like Big Show, Chris Jericho. They were in a limited amount of the Aki games that he felt should have been more represented, like Sabu, Kargach, Ricky Dozan, The Destroyer, Ric Flair. Ric Flair, I think, is a big one, And not having them that, it wouldn't make sense. So it wouldn't make sense not to have Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, Hogan. And also, there's a few people that you saw earlier that having them in the Aki game is sort of like a novelty, like Cena, like Brock Lesnar, like Samoa Joe. He didn't want anyone on the roster that, would require hacks to get, like Okada, or Omega. And I've made cause of them, so you could always bring the cause into the game. He didn't want to just go for like a popularity contest as well. Let's put in CM Punk, because again, you would need ROM hacks you would need hack the moves in order to get them to feel right. You're not gonna have CM Punk or Omega in there if you can't do their moves. So he went through a whole process, but again, with Virtual Pro Wrestling Studio, eventually down the line, you could make your own roster full of people if you wanted to make it just Japanese wrestlers, or just WCW wrestlers and Japanese wrestlers, or a mixture, and you want to see certain people in it that is not in the Freem Edition. You'll be able to do that eventually on your own. It'll take some time, but I think that's the cool thing about this, is that a lot of times when you see ROM hacks and mods released, you don't necessarily see the tools released alongside them. Sometimes you do, like the GoldenEye editor we talked about earlier. And I think that's great, because I think that allows people who are fans of the ROM hack, or who are fans of wanting to maybe create their own version, it allows them to sort of build upon what was already established. And I think that's going to be great. And again, I'm excited about it because I've never really dived into that kind of stuff, and I really would like to here. And he says, the quote-unquote finished product, when he does release it, it's not going to be 100% finished. He's trying to do a pre-release preview version sometime around the end of 2018, early 2019, and he's going to try to update it as much as possible when it is released. I asked him, after Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Edition, are you going to make anything else? Are you going to make any other hacks? And he said he might do something similar with WWF No Mercy. So I think that's going to be awesome. So if you want to find out more about this project, I say follow Freem on Twitter. I'm going to have everything in the description below anyway, but follow him on Twitter. His Twitter account, his Twitter handle is AJ at AJ_187. He also has his own website, ajworld.net. He hasn't updated in a while, but as he gets closer to the release of Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Studio, he's going to update it more. And he also recommends that any Aki specific stuff you can also see at Virtual Wrestling, VPW.ajworld.net. And I asked them if anyone else wants to make, mod hacks themselves, how would they start? Where would they go to learn? If they see a video like this, it's like, I want to do something like this, but Virtual Wrestling Studio is not out yet. What do they do? And he said, honestly, it's if you're a beginner, it's good to start with the Game Shark codes and emulator plugins. And there is a new community hub that has recently been established after the closure of the Old School Reunions board, called NextWave64. And you can find that. They have a Discord. Just Google NextWave64 and you should be able to find them. There's some other good resources as well for a lot of ROM hacks and mods being done for the Aki Games. And I'll have a link to that in the description below because it's too long to say. But basically, the WLDFB archive forum, it's hard to say out loud. It's easier to just type it out and put it in description. But there's that forum, and then the Virtual Wrestling 2 Dojo, if I know a lot of people are familiar with that come to this channel. And keep in mind, there's other ROM hacks and mods that are happening that I've been in contact with the people creating them, like what Freem has mentioned, the Aki Evolution, the Virtual Wrestling 3 mod that's happening. These are people who are trying to recreate what we know and love about the Aki series, but also improve on it or help it grow. I'm really excited to see the Aki Evolution one as well, because they are changing how you grapple. They're changing, they're getting rid of strong grapples. You can bank your finishers. It's crazy stuff. I don't know if I'll be able to run that on my EverDrive. I probably won't, because a lot of that stuff is mods. But maybe when Freem releases his Virtual Wrestling Studio, a lot of these other developers, I guess we could call them developers, right? These modders who are working on these mods for the Aki series, maybe they'd be able to create versions of their mods with Virtual Wrestling Studio. It's exciting time to be alive as a fan of the Aki series. This game came out in January of 2000. Okay, I bought this at a video game store in Chinatown when I was a teenager, and to think, here I am, almost 19 years later, because in a few months the game will be 19 years old. I'm not only still playing this game, and I have a YouTube channel making videos of this game, but there's all these crazy... I'm able to play as Stone Cold Steve Austin against Mitsuhiro Misawa right now, and I'm able to do the Stone Cold Stunner with Misawa, and it's just on the Tokyo Dome. It's so cool. It's so cool to see that. Freem says Virtual Wrestling 2 is his favorite game of the Aki series. It's my favorite game as well. But again, Virtual Wrestling Studio is going to allow you, me, everyone to eventually make your own ROM hacks. But even if you don't want to make your own ROM hack, hopefully Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Edition will be enough to satisfy you, and it'll be easy for you to just get a ROM hack going, or get the ROM hack up and running and easy to play. Because I know my struggle with sort of mods is sort of you download this zip file, there's all these files and textures and everything you gotta load, and they only work with various plugins. Virtual Wrestling 2 Freem Edition is going to be a very sort of user-friendly, seamless ROM hack for Virtual Wrestling 2, and I'm glad that Freem gave me an opportunity to share this with you. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. If you're excited about a project like this, if you want to see more, if you're still with me, if you're still here, let me know what other mods or hacks you think I should check out that have already been developed for the Aki series, that I should try to make videos on them as well. I promised that I would eventually start making videos on mods for the Aki games. But while we wait for that, you can also check them out on my Virtual Wrestling 2 calls, my Virtual Wrestling 2 Let's Plays. Like, comment, subscribe. You've been on YouTube before. You know what to do. Follow me on Twitch. I stream every day, Monday through Friday, during the daytime, Eastern Time. I play a lot of wrestling games. Make sure you follow me on Twitch. So yeah, I'm Be Better Gamer. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, you know what to do. Keep watching all the wrestling. Thank you.